And welcome to April's SuperCast. I'm Jason Grzgorek, your host, bringing you everything you need to know Winton Woods City School District. I'm very fortunate to have with me Karina Denny from the Winton Woods City Schools. Of course, Mr. Smith is here in spirit and in body. However, we have so many people joining us today. He's given us the blessing to have you join us as well.
Right. So we are so happy to have today two of our science teachers from the high school, Natumbi Simpson, as well as Coach C. And then we also have our assistant principal, Amber Strasser.
Excellent. I'm glad that we have a really full cast here today. It's going to make for a lot of fun, especially talking to a lot of the teachers involved in this. So let's get started with the idea of two science individuals going at it with new tech. How do you feel with this program for your students? Is it really good for all those that you're teaching now?
I think so. I've seen my students flourish this year. I've been teaching for 24 years. I'm a traditional teacher, and I have been for the past 24 years. This is my first year delving into project-based learning. And I teach students of all abilities, and I've seen them all flourishing. It's really good to see in the classroom, to see them be able to come into their own and to discover things and discover abilities that they never knew that they had. So.
You bring up, I'm not ignoring you, Coach C, trust me. I have a whole bunch for you, but 24 years in teaching and going into this the first year, was there any trepidation, when you were looking at being told that, hey, this is the new way?
Well, yes and no. I knew that it was best for my students. I was not confident in my own ability to do it well.
Okay.
And I think that's with anything that you're trying the first time. You don't know if you're going to flop or you're going to flourish. It's kind of I was afraid of that, but our students latched onto it so well, and they just dive into all the projects very well, and it's refreshing to see. But for me, it was scary initially, because again, you've become so good at doing something, and then it changes, and you're like, oh no, am I going to be as good doing this? So it's.
All right, Coach C, we were talking earlier, prior to the cast, that, energy was the key factor.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you really believe wholeheartedly that's what fuels this new tech learning?
So the students, no matter if they're struggling or if they're high performers, they all can hop in and get excited about something. They all have a piece to contribute, whether it's specifically content related or other skills. But every single student, no matter what their ability level is, gets excited and engaged about every project that we do. And that's the exciting part, and that's the best part about the whole project-based learning process.
Which, let's compare, how many, when you were first introduced and saying, okay, this is what you'll be teaching and this is how you'll be teaching, how was your reaction when you were
I was super excited. They sent me to the PBL training in the summer down in New Orleans with Ms. Strausser, actually, and it was one of the coolest experiences. I got to see different ways to teach, different ways that kids are doing things, and as soon as I started doing it, I seen an immediate change in my students and how excited they were, and the work that they were performing was significantly better than anything I've ever seen in the physics classroom.
Change is, I think, the key word there, and I think we can all agree that that's the key. What do you think has been the major change within your classrooms that you've seen when it comes to either your teaching or those learning?
Engagement. All of the students are engaged because they feel so connected to what they're doing. They're developing their project. They are pacing themselves. It's their thing, and they are engaged. And I think that is the biggest difference that I'm seeing in my students this year compared to the other years of experience of teaching students. It's just the level of engagement. It's far, far greater.
I think mine's surprise. I'm really surprised at the great things that our students can accomplish. I mean, they really do shock you every day with some of the stuff that they come up with and their creativity levels and the ability and their way to relate different things or bring in a video or bring in something that you would have never thought of. And I've gotten a lot of great ideas from them on how to improve my teaching because of their creativity. So.
Let's look from a supervisor's standpoint. How are you seeing the school change?
Just seeing that it's working everywhere. We have some of our special ed classes. Actually, some of the places with teachers that are first year PBL, we've seen some of the biggest difference in special ed classrooms where students in our study skills class, our life skills class, that are students that have some pretty significant disabilities. They developed school store plans, and they invited people from the district, from the community, to come and listen to their presentations on how they were going to create a school store. And these were students that even included some of our multi-handicapped students that a lot of times don't get exposed to some of the heavier content related and project related type material. And they're doing amazing things. They presented in front of, I believe, the superintendent, as well as many of the members of the school board, of the district board office, that they came in and listened to the students talk passionately about this school store that they were going to create, because it was real. It wasn't do an economics lesson and talk about how you're going to use this hypothetical money in the hypothetical situation. It was a real situation of, we're going to create this store so we can supply these goods to our students so that everyone has what they need. Just seeing things like that, seeing Miss Simpson's class. I was working on a genetics project where they're talking about genetic disorders. Just walking down the hallway today, I heard students talking about, is sickle cell a dominant or recessive trait, and what's that mean? And they're talking about Punnett squares as they're walking down the hallway, because they're worried about the scenario that they're working on of a family that's trying to have children and deciding whether they're really going to have this disorder or that disorder based on their genes. And they see it. It's real. It's not read this, answer a worksheet on it, listen to this lecture, give it back on a test.
You would probably say the typical regurgitation
Right.
and that retention could get lost.
Right.
But the one thing I'm also hearing in this is inclusion. Everybody's getting involved.
Absolutely.
I want to piggyback on your idea with engagement.
Yes.
Would you say that with PBL, is that what's changing? Is that you're rather than being one classroom, you're becoming one school?
Yes. And what they're doing in the classroom, it goes beyond the classroom. I think that's the biggest thing here. It goes beyond just what happens in biology. It extends to all areas and to other areas within the school. It extends to, for example, the sustainability committee. That extends beyond just the biology or beyond the environmental science classroom.
Physics. Obviously, we may all remember taking physics and doing certain projects. You took those courses. You did those
Absolutely.
types of. How do you expand those to make them something? Or is it something that the students are bringing and saying, well, the egg drop is great, however, I can do this?
So it's a little bit of both. We always get feedback at the end of every project to improve it and to make it better. And so we may start with a basic concept, but my favorite lesson that we do, and it seems to be the students' favorite lesson, is the catapult project. They actually build 3-foot tall, 2-foot wide catapults, and they launch it to this big castle that sits about this high off the ground, and they hit little army men, and they have to do all the calculations on where they place their catapult and how high they need to put it, and if it doesn't shoot at this velocity, then they're not going to hit this guy, and they love it. They get so excited about it. They actually replace the flag in the middle of the castle if they win, and they design their own flag based on crests and that kind of stuff, and so they get that little bit of social studies aspect
I was
in
just
there.
going to say, now you're integrating another class, which
Absolutely.
goes back to the whole.
Right.
And the really really exciting thing is we get a new class next year. It's pre-calc and physics combined, and me and Mr. Amstutz are gonna be doing some fantastic things, doing those two classes at the same time, and teaching the math through the physics and the physics through the math. So it's going to be super pumped to see what the students can come up with there and what we can do for them.
And the students are very excited about that class. They were asking for it and almost a waiting list to get into
And
it.
when's the last time you've heard that in a high school? I mean, I
Exactly.
know that when I was filling out my head, I was like, algebra, but now it sounds like you're like, ooh, I need to get into X class or Y class.
Well, and we had a time, I mean, not too recently, with physics where we had a hard time keeping the students in the course for the whole year because it was hard and it wasn't real. It was math, and it was things that were way beyond what they expected to do in the class. And now, I mean, we're offering, I believe we're going to try to offer the second half of AP Physics next
Absolutely.
year because we have so many students that want to extend to even another year of AP Physics. And we haven't been able to offer that a lot in the past.
So do you think that obviously I think we all know the answer, that PBL is now offering, as you were saying, that real world application so that people don't go, well, I took physics in high school, but what am I going to do with physics, or what am I going to do with biology? Do you think that's what we're seeing now, that the practicality of what you're taking in school now really does have
It does apply. It really does apply to life.
You don't hear the, why do I have to take this class?
Right.
Why
There's
are
the
we doing
connection.
this?
Right.
You don't hear that anymore in a PBL environment.
So with that, knowing, and of course now we're hearing newer classes being created and things like that, does it excite you to help in creating a new curriculum to start saying, we're going to offer a second physics class, we're going to offer this, and what are the other things that it may open doors for?
Oh, we already have quite a few ideas that keep coming to us of different things that people want to participate in, especially with the dual classes. We've offered a social studies English dual class for all the years that AGS has been in existence, and began this year to offer that outside of AGS in our freshman classes, in our NTA portion of the school. And we're looking to add more of those dual classes where not only do you have double the amount of time to be able to work on those projects and do innovative and interesting things, but we're seeing that cross-curricular connection. You know, where when our students in the 10th grade social studies class were working on the 1920s and 30s, they were reading books based in the time period. They were learning about it. They wrote music. They wrote songs, poetry that kind of summed up the whole time period, using not only what they knew from their social studies, but also their English skills as well.
One last question before we make a wrap-up, because amazingly these times go by quickly with us. The one word that keeps coming to my mind when I'm listening to all of these great stories is liberation. I'm going to ask the teachers this as the final question. What do you think is liberating to you as a teacher and to the students in which you teach?
As a teacher, I'm free to not know everything. I think that's the biggest freedom that I feel in my classroom is I'm the facilitator, and I'm not the keeper of all knowledge. But we're seeking out solutions together. I can guide you. I can help guide you. But there are going to be times when I don't know, but we can find the resources together. And I think my students appreciate that too.
I would say exactly the same thing. I mean, no longer is it they have to come to us to get the knowledge, but they can search it out with their computers or within the project or within the resources we post. YouTube is a fantastic resource. And then for the students, they really feel that ownership, and they are able to take that project and take it to the next level, and they're able to do things that they were never able to do in the past. They weren't allowed to do it. So they can come to us and say, hey, instead of doing a presentation, can I do a video instead? Or can I come up with a podcast? Or can I come up with a song? And can I do it this way? Because I think this would be cooler. And, I mean, most of the time they surprise you and they wow you.
That is truly amazing. as I was speaking with Mr. Smith on this, we have some great superstars, and that's why we bring this all together. So I want to thank all of you for joining us. We could go on forever talking about stories. It's absolutely wonderful. Karina, you did say you had a few things, something's coming up in the district that we want to highlight.
That's right. We have a film screening that's coming up on April 12th at 6:30 at the high school library. It is called Most Likely to Succeed. It's actually been showcased at the Sundance, actually over 24 top film festivals, but specifically the Sundance Film Festival. And it's a fantastic film. It's really about reimagining education. So we really encourage our community to come out. And also to piggyback on this whole conversation, if our community, if our business leaders, if our parents want to come in and shadow for a day, come into our schools and see what this really looks like, I would highly encourage them to do so. They just have to call the high school main office.
Excellent, and we'll have all the information down at the bottom of the screen for
Great.
those who want to do that. Of course, this has been Warrior SuperCast, because we do highlight some great superstars. I want to thank Superintendent Smith for bringing us all together, Karina bringing everyone together as well, and I want to thank you for joining us. My name is Jason Grzgorek, and I want to thank you for being a superstar here in the Wittenwood School District here on Warrior SuperCast.